July 30th, 1985 was a hot, sultry day in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. 8-year-old Nicole Morin talked to her friend via the intercom and said that she would be in the lobby in just a few minutes. She left her penthouse apartment on the 20th floor of her high-rise apartment building at 11 a.m. to meet her friend in the lobby for a swim date. Nicole never met her friend. Approximately 15 minutes later, this friend buzzed Nicole's mother, Jeanette, to see where Nicole was. Jeanette had been busy with other small children in a daycare in her apartment and thought Nicole had already left. She told the little girl that her daughter had gone to the pool, or maybe she was playing with other children at the back of the complex. It wasn't until later in the day that Jeanette Morin realized that Nicole hadn't gone swimming. Panic set in. Jeanette tried to find Nicole herself, reaching out to other tenants in the apartment building, but nobody had seen Nicole, so Jeanette contacted the police at 6 p.m. The police's response was immediate. An exhaustive search was conducted for Nicole, including hundreds of volunteers. The media became involved, and Nicole's disappearance was well publicized. Despite all of this, police never did turn up any useful evidence, and to today, we still do not know what happened to Nicole Morin nearly 40 years ago. The disappearance of Nicole Morin is one of Toronto's most enduring and chilling mysteries. Welcome back to Unjust Crimes. My name is Michelle, and this is the disappearance of Nicole Morin of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So this is one of the first cases that I ever covered, and as I have mentioned in the past, my plan for a while now has been to go back and redo some of those old cases, because, well, basically I wanted to update them with better audio, and as well, a couple of them have some new information. In this case, there's not necessarily new information, but a few developments since I first covered this case. Some new witnesses have come forward, there have been new searches, and there is a possible new suspect that relates to another case that I have recently just covered, and that is the case of Christine Jessup. And since I have just done that case very recently, Nicole Morin has been on my mind a lot because there is a very real possibility that the man who abducted and murdered Christine Jessup could be the same man that abducted and potentially murdered Nicole. And I am not saying that off the cuff. It is something that the Toronto police are actively investigating and have publicly said. If you haven't watched my video on Christine Jessup, I do suggest that you do so, but just a brief recap, Christine was a 9-year-old girl who was abducted from her home in Queensville, Ontario, which is only about an hour's drive away from Toronto. She was abducted in October of 1984, which was just 10 months before Nicole Morin was abducted. Christine's body was found dumped in a field in Sunderland, Ontario, 2 months after she vanished, and for 36 years, her case went unsolved, until in 2020, when her killer, Kelvin Hoover, was finally caught using genetic genealogy. Unfortunately, Hoover had committed suicide in 2015 and would never face punishment for Christine's murder, but the discovery of her killer has made many people wonder, police included, was this his only crime? Could he have been involved in other abductions in the Toronto area, like Nicole Morin's, for instance? And this is something that is actively being investigated as we speak. Now for me, I have a weird connection to this case, kind of. I believe learning of Nicole's disappearance from someone who knew her and was friends with her at the time that she vanished piqued my interest in her case and probably true crime as a whole. I've always been fascinated with Nicole's case because one of my really good friends was friends with Nicole at the same time that she vanished. I have been hearing about this case for years. My friend lived close to Nicole and attended the same church. They were the same age. Actually, Nicole is my age, and these two little girls played together. They were friends. My friend has told me numerous times about how scared her parents were when Nicole was taken, seeing that they practically lived next door to each other, and I know Nicole's disappearance has shaped my friend and how she parented her children. So I've been following this case for a very long time, and I always check back every couple of months to see if there are any updates. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen very often. But I have to say, since Christine Jessup's killer has been found, it seems to have, revitalized interest in Nicole's case to a certain degree. I guess finding Christine Jessup's murderer has given the case a spark of hope, some incentive to keep going. I'm not saying that the police weren't already working on this case, because they have been. But I think finding Christine Jessup's killer after nearly 40 years probably boosted their confidence. And I think because people are still coming forward that had not before, there have been new searches, and we never know when that one piece of information is going to be that one missing key. I do think that we need to find Nicole, either her remains or Nicole herself, or someone needs to confess to something for this case to ever truly be resolved. And it has been said, like it has been said in many other cases of the time, that this abduction stole the innocence of the times from Toronto. Up to then, kids played outside, parents really didn't need to worry about them much. I've talked about it before in several cases. It was a different time. Kids of the 80s, like myself, had lots of freedom. We were sent outside to play, be home to eat, and be home when the light comes on the light pole. Heck, I walked to kindergarten by myself. But Nicole's abduction changed how people in Toronto parented. Parents kept a closer eye on their children, and children were no longer able to run as free. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of this investigation. So it was the middle of the summer in the dead heat of Toronto in 1984. 8-year-old Nicole left her apartment at 11 a.m. to meet her friend in the lobby to go swimming, and the swimming pool was at the rear of the building complex. That morning, at approximately 10:30, she had gone downstairs to the lobby to pick up the mail. She returned to her apartment and got ready for her swim date. Before leaving, at 11, she spoke to her friend via the intercom and said that she would be there in just a few minutes. She left her apartment wearing a peach-colored one-piece bathing suit, green hairband, and red canvas shoes. She carried a plastic bag containing a white t-shirt, green and white shorts, suntan lotion, hairbrush, a peach-colored blanket, and a purple beach towel. 15 minutes later, Nicole's friend buzzed up to the apartment to see why Nicole hadn't arrived at the lobby. Jeanette, who was busy, assumed that Nicole had gone to the pool either by herself or she was out back playing with some other kids at the rear of the complex. But after several hours, Jeanette realized that Nicole wasn't swimming, she wasn't playing with any other kids, and she was in fact missing. She tried searching for Nicole herself, but eventually contacted the police by 6 p.m. Now that's a 7-hour window, from 11 a.m. when she left the apartment to 6 p.m. when her mother called the police. Let's not forget that we are talking about 1984. There were no cameras in the building. Actually, here's a really sad fact. In the week prior to Nicole going missing, the building had workers in installing cameras in the building, but they weren't live yet. They were supposed to go live in a few days after Nicole had disappeared. Just imagine. What a shame. Remember this piece of information though, because I'm going to come back to this, and I think this piece of information could potentially be the key to this mystery. So hold that thought. The Toronto police reacted immediately, like I said, in the days and weeks that followed. They launched one of the largest missing persons investigations in Toronto history. An exhaustive search was conducted right away. They searched everywhere in the 429-unit complex. They knocked on every door, searched every apartment, including the mirror apartment building that was across the courtyard. And they entered every apartment, even if there was no answer when they knocked. They searched parks, creeks, wooded areas, nearby schools, and retail locations. Immediately, roadblocks were set up and police drove around in police cars with PA systems to inform the community of the search. Police put out a plea to the public in the next couple of days for volunteers, and more than 900 residents joined the search. The media became involved, and the case was well publicized. A 20-member task force was created and active for 9 months. Despite all of this, there has never to this day been any sign whatsoever of Nicole. She simply vanished when she left her apartment. So there has always been some debate about whether Nicole was last seen entering the elevator on her floor or walking down the hallway. Now, a woman who lived in the building identified Nicole from a picture, leading police at the time to determine that Nicole had traveled down the elevator and entered the lobby. I don't really know if that's accurate though, because police have always said that they do not know where Nicole vanished from. Did she vanish from the hallway of her floor? Did she vanish from the elevator? Did she get off on another floor and vanish? Or did she make it to the lobby before her friend and something happened to her there? We simply do not know. The day after Nicole disappeared, additional officers were brought in, consisting of mounted horsemen, Marine units, helicopters, and foot patrols. In combing the area near Highway 27, which is in the vicinity of the apartment building, tracking dogs were also brought in to explore the buildings, underground garages, utility rooms, storage units, sub-pump rooms, but still nothing was ever found to indicate what happened to Nicole Morin. The newly formed Toronto Crime Stoppers took on the disappearance as its first significant case. They posted a $1,000 reward, printed posters, and produced a video reenactment of Nicole's last known movements, which aired on TV several weeks later. police would eventually offer a $100,000 reward, which is still active today. The Toronto Star created 6,000 copies of a flyer with Nicole's picture, information, and the number for the police department. 3,000 copies of a watercolor sketch of Nicole were distributed to police departments, post offices, and local stores. As the weeks went by, police spoke with tenants of nearby buildings, and a list of potentially 5,000 people that were living in the general vicinity of where Nicole went missing were compiled. By November of 1985, police had questioned about 6,000 people. The investigation cost an estimated $1.8 million during its first year, and like I said, was said to be one of the largest efforts to find a missing child in Toronto's history. Nicole's family and friends were cleared of involvement in her disappearance. Over the years, age-progressed photographs have been distributed of Nicole. When Nicole first disappeared, a witness reported seeing a mysterious woman on her floor holding a notebook. The woman was described as approximately 35 years old, 5 feet 5 to 7 inches tall, with a slender build, a very fair complexion with dark blonde shoulder-length hair parted on the left. The woman was reportedly wearing a white skirt with a black pattern, a white or cream-colored short-sleeve blouse open at the neck, and white or cream-colored heeled shoes. Police distributed a flyer with a sketch of this woman wanting to talk to her, as she was considered a possible witness. Not necessarily a suspect, but she's never been identified. Months after Nicole vanished, a search turned up a plastic bag containing a couple of items of clothing, a newspaper dated July 31st, 1985, with Nicole's school picture on the front. Now, I could not find if this had really any significance to Nicole's abduction, but I guess it's still suspicious. Nicole's picture, physical description, and age-enhanced photographs appeared on electronic screens in Esso gas stations, billing envelopes from Rogers Cable and the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, or CIBC, Toronto Transit Commission display screens, and on the back of transport trucks. Several video reenactments of her last known movements have been released throughout the years. And though Nicole's abduction would become a cold case, the Toronto Police and missing child organizations have continued to work the case over the years, as well as making a big effort to keep her case in the public eye. Despite this very detailed search and interview process, no sign of Nicole has ever been found. Technically, the Toronto Police listed Nicole as a missing person, but they do believe that foul play was involved in her disappearance. They do believe that she was abducted. It's highly unlikely that she got lost. And it's also very unlikely that she wandered off or ran away. I mean, she was only wearing a bathing suit. And if either of those scenarios had been the case, police believe that she would have been found by the extensive search. And that is why police believe that she was abducted. By who and what happened to her are the questions police need to figure out. As the years dragged on, nothing of any evidence ever came up, but police have always worked this case. In 2001, Toronto Crime Stoppers sent out an enhanced picture of Nicole as a woman in her mid-20s to more than 1,000 Crime Stoppers programs in 17 countries via the internet. In 2004, researchers for a Belgian organization known as the Fondation Princesses de Croix et Massimo Lancelotti announced that they had tentatively matched photographs of Nicole seen on a Canadian police website with pictures on a Dutch website that advocates for sexually abused children. According to them, using biometrical analysis, the researchers claimed that there was a strong resemblance between Nicole and a child that was seen on a network in Zandvoort. Now, I tried to find out more information for this video, but the site has been taken down, although I do remember looking at it a few years ago, and I must say that the resemblance between this child on this site and Nicole was uncanny. I mean, it is possible that Nicole did end up in a sex trafficking ring. In 2007, a television reenactment was done for GTA's Most Wanted. In July of 2014, police launched the hashtag Find Nicole social media campaign to mark the 29th anniversary of her disappearance. They released another reenactment video that documented her last known movements in hopes of jogging people's memories, and this was screened at Mac's convenience stores throughout the province of Ontario. And it worked, because this reenactment would prompt a person who reported a tip back in 1985 to get in touch with police again. So let's just go back to 1985 for a second. It was a day or two after Nicole vanished when a little girl, not much older than Nicole, was feeding horses with her mom, when they heard a sound of a little girl pleading for her life, saying, quote, "Stop please, you're hurting me." Then silence. "Oh my God," the witness's mother said, it's that little girl who was taken from Toronto. The mother called the police to tell them of the piercing screams she and her daughter had just heard in the woods. 2 more neighbors also reported similar reports. The area was searched back in 1985, but nothing was found. Now fast forward to 2014, and this little girl was now grown up and she saw this reenactment, and it prompted her to call the Toronto police herself about what remained seared in her memory. Quote, "I still have nightmares, I'll never get over it." She has said that she felt that she had to reach out to the Toronto police because, quote, "I truly believe I heard Nicole being killed and it still haunts me to this day." Now, following this tip, nearly 30 years later, on October 28, 2014, the OPP resumed the 1985 search for Nicole on Horseshoe Valley Road, which is 20 kilometers north of Barrie, Ontario. Police were hoping that advances in search equipment may turn up more information, but unfortunately, police found nothing conclusive. On the 30th anniversary of her disappearance in 2015, the Toronto police organized a 5K run called Nicole's Run at Centennial Park in Etobicoke, and the event included a candlelight vigil. Also on the 30th anniversary of Nicole's disappearance, police released a new artist's rendition of what Nicole would look like as a middle-aged woman. In 2019, on the 34th anniversary of Nicole's disappearance, the Toronto Police Missing Persons Unit released an age-enhanced picture of Nicole suggesting what she might look like in her 40s. Then in 2020, a woman came forward and said that she had seen Nicole at a nearby park on the day of her disappearance. The woman was only 12 years old when Nicole disappeared, and when she was asked why she waited so long to come forward, she explained that the man she saw Nicole with had molested her before and she feared coming forward with this lead. Now, as reported by the Toronto Star on July 14, 2022, members of Please Bring Me Home, which is a Canadian-wide volunteer organization dedicated to investigating missing persons in cold cases based on tips from the general public, spent hours in an undisclosed park in Toronto's West End looking for traces of Nicole Morin. 2 cadaver dogs from Black Tracks Canine Corporation were part of the search team, and along with their handlers and PBMH investigators. In the initial search that covered about 45% of the park area, the cadaver dogs got a hit where they indicated they were detecting the scent of human remains. PBMH Central Canada Director Brett Robinson said the area where the dogs indicated a possibility of human remains was really hard to get to. What that meant for the search is really not clear. According to the Toronto Star, they were supposed to be going back in a couple of weeks to verify some spots that the dogs had hit on, as well as cover the remainder of the park. And I don't believe that anything conclusive came from that search that I could find. But then the Toronto Star reported that detectives from the Homicide and Missing Persons Unit dug up and examined soil from an undisclosed location north of the city in an effort to locate Nicole's remains. Now, Robinson said that the group has been receiving more tips on her case since the news of this search came out. But like I said, I couldn't really find anything else on this, so I have no idea what exactly they found or if it even related to Nicole at all. Detective Stella Karras, who is now the lead on Nicole's case, said, quote, "We're calling this Project Finnick for Find Nicole." She said that when the old Missing Persons Unit was broken up in the early 1990s, the Morin case files went back to 22 Division. While the case wasn't completely ignored, more pressing matters in the division often meant that the files spent some time on the shelf. Now, with the combined Homicide and Missing Persons Unit, the search for Nicole has been revitalized. Quote, "We are now able to focus on collaborating on old cases and bringing a new lens to the original missing persons investigations." And she also added that the disappearance of Nicole Morin is being investigated as a homicide. So currently there's one full-time investigator on Nicole's case and several other investigators are assisting. Detective Steve Smith said that they recently digitized the files and found many tips leading to a location north of Toronto, but they have yet to find anything. And if you watch the case on Christine Jessup, and a few of my other cases too, you will recognize this detective's name. Detective Steve Smith is the one who caught Kelvin Hoover using genetic genealogy, as well as many others using that method as well. He vows that the police will continue investigating Nicole's case. They hope that just one person calls in with the information they didn't previously have to help find Nicole and bring peace to her family. Now, over the years, investigators say that, especially in the beginning, there were persons of interest, but there's never been enough information to elevate any of them to suspect. And investigators back in the day, according to current investigators, did a really good job of interviewing and investigating to see if there was any evidence that any of these persons of interest could be elevated to suspect, but they were not able to do so. Nicole Louise Morin was born on April 1st, 1977. She was the only child of Arthur or Art and Jeanette Morin, who were married for 12 years before Nicole came along. She had been living with her mother in a 20th floor penthouse apartment in the Etobicoke area of Toronto. She was on summer vacation from Wellsworth Junior School, where she was in grade 3. Her parents were separated at the time of her disappearance, and her father lived nearby. Nicole was described by her dad, quote, "She was taking swimming lessons and dancing lessons, ballet and jazz. She liked to go to McDonald's to have some fun, and she loved Ontario Place. She was just a normal, beautiful little child." Nicole was also described as liking going to the fair, she liked the circus, and she was known to be wary of strangers. Childhood friends remember Nicole as a happy-go-lucky girl and fun to be around. She liked to use her imagination and play outside. She liked to swim in the pool that was for her building. At the time of her disappearance, she was 4 feet tall and weighed 51 pounds. As you can imagine, when Nicole vanished, her parents were thrown into a tailspin. Jeanette and Art had been separated at the time that Nicole vanished, but got back together for a while, but they did permanently separate in 1987. Interestingly, it was revealed shortly after Nicole went missing that her dad found one of her notebooks in which Nicole had written, quote, "I'm going to disappear." Did this mean anything, or was it just the silly writings of a young girl? We'll probably never know. Nicole's mom, Jeanette, believed that she had been murdered, saying in 1985, quote, "I know someone's killed her, I can just feel it." Meanwhile, her father, Art, said in 1995, quote, "I would rather keep on thinking that she's alive somewhere and one day things will come together." Art has spent a good part of his life looking for his little girl, going so far as leaving his job, setting up an office, and hiring a private investigator. He searched and searched for clues for his missing daughter in Canada and the United States, but unfortunately, he would never be able to find Nicole, or even any clues. Jeanette also did her part to find Nicole throughout her life, even consulting a psychic in Calgary. Sadly, Jeanette Morin died in 2007, never knowing what had happened to her little girl. And as far as I can tell, Art Morin is still alive, and he's still living in the Etobicoke area of Toronto, but doesn't talk publicly about the case anymore because it's just too painful. And the current lead detective on Nicole's case, Detective Carras, has said that Art only wants the police to contact him now if they have something significant to tell him. So I feel pretty confident in saying that the only theory in Nicole's case is that she was abducted. By who? Well, that's the million-dollar question. And as I said, there were no cameras in the building, but ding ding ding, cameras were being installed in the week previous to Nicole's disappearance. Remember I said I was going to come back to this little tidbit of information? So here we go. People have always wondered if Nicole's abduction was related to a cluster of other missing girls in the Toronto area around the same time. Actually, in Toronto in the 1980s and into the 1990s, a shocking number of young girls went missing. Just a few of those were Christine Jessup, who I've mentioned. She was 9. She went missing from her home the October before Nicole vanished. That's just 10 months. Sharon Morningstar Keenan, also 9, was abducted in January of 1983. Allison Perrott disappeared in July of 1986 at age 11. Now, all of these girls, besides Nicole, turned up dead. Christine Jessup's murder went unsolved for 36 years, until 2020, when Detective Steve Smith from the Toronto Police Services found her killer using genetic genealogy, and that was Kelvin Hoover. And guess what this guy Kelvin Hoover worked at? Kelvin Hoover worked as a cable installer with Eastern Independent Telecom, and he regularly worked in Toronto. It is not inconceivable that Hoover crossed paths with Nicole while he was working in the city. I want to know, was he involved in installing the cameras in her apartment building? Is that possible? I have read that the police do indeed wonder if Kelvin Hoover was responsible for taking Nicole. In the words of Detective Smith, when Hoover couldn't be ruled out as having involvement in Nicole's abduction, his team joined the missing persons and cold case unit already working on the Morin case. The girls were similar in age. Christine was 9, Nicole was 8. They lived only 70 kilometers from one another, and they were both taken without a trace when found in a compromising position. Another significant resemblance was that both families were in flux at the time of the abductions. Christine's father, Bob Jessup, had been in jail when she was taken, and Art and Jeanette Morin were separated. Now, Kelvin Hoover lived in Scarborough, which is about the midway point between the two children's homes, and he worked all over the greater Toronto area around this time. Quote, "I want to be 100% sure that he wasn't involved in that case," Detective Smith told YorkRegion.com, referring to Nicole's abduction. Quote, "There's a huge cross-reference of addresses, workplaces, vehicles. It's an in-depth process. We're bringing it up to 2021 standards. We're making sure, regardless of who the offender is, it's being fully investigated." Now, Hoover committed suicide in 2015, so police cannot question him, but they feel this inkling that he may be involved is more than just a hunch. According to Detective Stella Karras, the current lead on Nicole's case, "I think he's a pretty definite person of interest in this case. We just can't find the ties yet. It's just frustrating because we can't talk to him because he's passed away." Could Kelvin Hoover be their man? I think it's their best lead yet, and would not be surprised to hear that they have found something linking him to Nicole or the building that she lived in, or something like that in the future. Over the decades, though, many other theories have been brought up, so just to touch on them briefly. Many people remain suspicious of the mysterious blonde woman that was on Nicole's floor the morning that she disappeared, the one that was holding the notebook. Police did seek her out as a possible witness, but she was never located. It does seem suspicious to me that this woman never came forward in all these years. If she had not been up to anything wrong, you would think that she would want to help in the abduction of a small child. Now, maybe it's possible this woman didn't know the police were looking for her, but really, I think that's highly unlikely due to the media coverage this case got. But maybe she was afraid to come forward for whatever reason. But her appearance on Nicole's floor, 45 minutes before Nicole vanished, and not coming forward to the police afterwards is suspicious. At the time Nicole vanished, her father was part of a fundamentalist church called the Worldwide Church of God. So was my friend, and so was my husband, as children actually. I could do a full podcast episode on that alone. But I'm just going to say that in my opinion, that church was extreme. Now, Art has reportedly said that he thought Nicole was kidnapped by members of this church. And he has also reportedly suggested that someone connected to his ex-wife may have taken Nicole to avoid him gaining custody. Another popular theory was that Nicole was sold into an international sex trafficking ring, and that's why her pictures were reportedly identified by the Belgium organization. Now, this sort of thing does happen a lot more than people realize. I could not find any reputable information on either of these theories, though all I can say is that it's possible, I guess, though not likely, but these theories do persist when you read up on Nicole's case. But I will say, not so much anymore, since Kelvin Hoover has been found by the Toronto police to be the one who killed Christine Jessup. Now the talk is, could he have been involved in Nicole's abduction? Quote, "Somewhere between her apartment and the lobby, she disappeared," said Detective Sergeant Steve Smith. And nearly 40 years later, that is all we know. Nicole Morin simply vanished. The Toronto police have never given up investigating this case, though it is very cold and never had one shred of evidence from day one. As of late, the case files were being scanned and digitized. Quote, "Our goal is to find Nicole. That's our priority. Give her a proper burial for some closure for her. And if we can find her, use the new technology to get a suspect DNA and then arrest the killer," Detective Stella Karras said, adding that cops have not zeroed in on a particular suspect. Quote, "But there were a number of sexual offenders in the neighborhood that day. There were so many tenant tips, but we could never find any solid evidence." She also added, quote, "It's so frustrating. We don't know if Nicole ever made it to the lobby. We have always assumed she was abducted, but from where? The hallway? The elevator? We just don't know." Nicole's disappearance shook the community to the core. Parents became more cautious, and the community seemed to hold their children a bit tighter after that. Now, as I've mentioned, Nicole's case is one that I have followed for a very long time, and I come back to every once in a while, probably every couple of months, just to check on it to see if there's any new information. I am very interested to see if anything comes out of investigating Kelvin Hoover's possible connection to Nicole, though nothing concrete has been established yet, that I know of anyways. I think it's probably the best lead police have had since Nicole vanished nearly 40 years ago. It's so weird for me to think about that time and Nicole's case. She was my age. I don't know. For some reason, this case just always got me. Police are urging anyone with information about this case to give them a call. You can call the Toronto Police at 416-808-2200 or Crime Stoppers at 416-222-TIPS or 8477. Thank you for all the support. It truly is appreciated. It still surprises me that anybody would want to support Unjust Crimes. But for anybody that would like to do that and help support the podcast, I have added a PayPal link to my YouTube page. And again, it is truly appreciated. These stories do take a lot of time to put together. You can follow Unjust Crimes on Facebook and Instagram, and I will put those links in the description to this video. Please do give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And until next time, thank you for your time and stay safe out there.